I have to tell you, Philip sends his apologies. He is not able to make it to the panel right now, but he will be here tomorrow for Superjoint, so please check it out. Just real quick, we're at the halfway point. How you guys feeling? Awesome. Thanks for coming over. I know Napalm Death is still playing, so it's kick-ass that you guys have come over here for this. This is a really loose panel where it's not all about hardcore questions and order and structure. Just so many amazing personalities in horror and metal at this festival. I'm like, we've got to bring these worlds together. I'm just really, really excited. I'm just going to go down the list and introduce everybody. Feel free to cheer as loud as you want to. To my right, the impeccable, amazing, brilliant poet and brutal killer, Gunnar Hansen. Gentlemen, I'm really excited that we're bringing here this year just an amazing individual, killer musician, and a fucking hell of a writer, Mr. Randy Blythe. I'm running out of acronym or descriptives for everybody, so I may make it quicker. Bill Moseley. Dog. Bill's gonna have plenty to say later, so that's why I don't want to waste his time. Mr. David Vincent from Morbid Angel. And the lovely hoot of a crazy, awesome woman, Miss Caroline Williams. Yes. Best known for Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2 and the role of Stretch. A gentleman I've been becoming a good friends with this weekend, Michel Away Langevin from Voivod. And he's gonna be shy and modest, but god damn it, Bruce Corbett is the fucking man. Rigor Mortis, War Beast, Wizards of Gore. If you listen to any Rigor Mortis, this is basically his panel. Everything is metal and horror in this man's world. And we love Bruce. All right, guys, so just kind of want to talk about, Gunnar and I were having a nice little chat backstage about heavy metal, horror, and he said to me that I don't really know horror as it is now. I know it as Iron Butterfly.
I don't know heavy metal.
Oh, he doesn't know heavy metal at all.
No, I don't know heavy metal as it is now because Iron Butterfly and Deep Purple were heavy metal to us. Yeah. Well, yeah, cheer, sure. But, you know, but those were the things I thought of as the heaviest stuff around was those drunk musicians in Iron Butterfly and Deep Purple. It's the only heavy metal band record I ever bought. For what it's worth.
So you may not know much about the modern day metal bands, but so many metal bands, you know, whether the costume bands of Slipknot, that have obviously their leather face mask influences, so many horror films that, you know, Rigor Mortis, Bruce, can somebody pass the mic down to Bruce? Tell Gunnar, Texas Chainsaw Rigor Mortis connection, please.
Oh man, there's so many. On the first album, there was a song I wrote called Slow Death. And what I did is I turned the band into the Texas Chainsaw family, you know, so, you know, I actually used a line from that movie too. Hitchhiker, I have this knife, it's a good knife. And like I said, I turned the family into our own, chainsaw family. So like, some of y'all might know the words, Casey, rip off their flesh. And he was like the role of Leatherface. And then Mike, drain me a glass of blood. He was the hitchhiker. Hardin, prepare to make carcass stew, which obviously he was the cook. And then I was Grandpa. But, you know, and we actually, I took a clip from the actual movie. Hey, Grandpa, we're going to let you have this one. And it's in the song that was released on Capitol Records. And I've got to admit, we never did know if they even got permission to do that. So I just left that up to Capitol Records. You know, there it is. It's out there now. But
now, Bruce, you also had a Texas Chainsaw 2 connection in a lot of your songs too, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think the second day I joined Rigor Mortis, it came out. So we just skipped practice that day and took off and went and seen a matinee. And that, you know, that movie became such a big part of the entire image and inspiration for rigor mortis, and there was a little bit of humor in it. I thought, you know what I mean? I don't know if that was intentional, but so many one-liners in that movie that the band, would quote all the time. And on the new album, our bassist Casey Orr wrote a song called "Flesh for Flies," based on, pretty much inspired by Chainsaw Part 2. And I was telling Caroline yesterday, like not long after that movie came out, we were driving to Austin and looked over and saw that old abandoned amusement park where they filmed the movie. So we had to just pull over and climb the fence, and we went up there, and I told her we climbed up those crazy stairs that her and Bill, the climactic ending with Grandma. And I mean, I was scared to death just climbing up these stairs. It was like pretty scary, and I was applauding her for their acting and their stunt abilities for that movie, And we smoked a joint in honor of Grandma and Chainsaw 2.
All right. Thank you, Bruce. So Gunnar, was there an influence from the heavy rock bands of that era that, did they come and talk to you about seeing Chainsaw, or did you hear anything like that? I mean, it's different without the internet. But...
Oh, no, not at all. I mean, they didn't know who I was. As I recall, though, the Stones' Too Much Blood? Yeah, there you go. Have you ever looked at the music video for that? Leatherface is in the background. He's up. There's some sort of scaffolding, and it looks like they're in an abandoned building. So there are these windows up high, and just for a moment, Leatherface is in one of those windows with the song. So I was always impressed with that. I thought, wow, look at that. Even the Rolling Stones think I'm somebody.
Well, it's a little aside too. There's a dealership in town that sells cars, and they have Happy Leatherface slashing prices. So it's become extremely accepted and mainstream. So,
well, I didn't realize how big Chainsaw had become until only a few years ago. I was watching Cheers, and the Kirstie Alley character, Rebecca, I think her name is, works at the bar, and the whole episode she's lording it over everybody because she's going to spend the weekend house sitting in a state out in the country. And the last act is she's out there, and now that it's getting dark, she's getting scared. And she runs around the house and locks all the windows and all the doors. She comes back into the living room, and she hears a sound. And the last line of that episode is, "Oh, Leatherface, I hope that's not you." And that's when I realized how big the movie was, because she didn't have to explain to anybody who Leatherface was. Otherwise they would never have used that reference. But the very fact that she could say that line, and the producers knew everybody who watched the show would know exactly who we were talking about.
As Randy said, in the vernacular. So absolutely, man. I'd like to turn to Mr. David Vincent from Morbid Angel. Thank you for coming out, sir. David's not even playing with the band. He just wanted to come out and hang, and really grateful for you to take your time out, man. So thank you, sir. Hey, good buddy, we call him our cellular, Justin Giallo, was talking to me about you, and he mentioned Night of the Demons 2, Vengeance is Mine. And you had another song, too, in that, right?
Yeah, I always thought that heavy metal and horror kind of went hand in hand. That wasn't one of my favorite movies, by the way. But a lot of the stuff, when I think about the different movies, and the TCM stuff in particular, the graininess of the film, and the fact that it really based on a true story, being different than this sort of commercialized teenager in peril things like what we saw with the Friday the 13th stuff, and these like a fictional character that couldn't, as the story went on, it just kept coming back. When are you going to kill this guy? And there was just so much more of a real sense of you watch this. It was frightening, not only because of the texture, which was the texture of the time, but nowadays there's so much CGI and everything else. Things don't have the same grittiness, the teeth that they used to have.
Not to disagree with you, I completely agree as far as from the commercial aspect, but this is one thing that we've seen, with Philip and I going through all these films this year. Dude, the indie filmmakers are doing what these guys were doing. They're taking chances and going back to practical effects, using, sure. And it's really great to see, because they agree with what you're saying.
Well, and I'm glad, because listen, I entertain for a living, but I also love being entertained. Okay, so I would certainly much rather, watch the kind of stuff. I was really into a lot of the old Hammer horror films because, all that stuff, just the same, this texture, this grittiness of film, the thing, it's just not so polished, and it shouldn't be.
What kind of films, like Chainsaw, what other films, the Hammer films, what other films that really had the influence on you?
All of the stuff, anything with Christopher Lee and Peter Cushing is I'm all about it. There's also a Spanish director named Jess Franco, and I love, some of that gets more into sort of the exploitation stuff, but anything that has that look, I have a huge collection of stuff, and I paid dearly for a lot of it because you get it how you can, right? But all that kind of stuff, anything that has that feeling to it, and certainly if it has a horror aspect to it as well.
One thing I'm sad that Philip's not here because I think you two would bond over this is H.P. Lovecraft.
Oh, of course.
So obviously it's about writing and the word of horror, but how could you?
Well, that's not so much from the movie standpoint. I read all the books, all the Lovecraft, and all this stuff.
But that imagery, like last night, we had Portal with the tentacled fingers.
Oh, sure.
Just brilliant
it
stuff.
comes from reading stuff and being inspired by it, and then finding a way to incorporate that, and maybe some social messaging and what have you. But telling it in a story and trying to express that as an artist in the same way that you were sort of touched by someone else's work. It's passing it along. On
some of the earlier albums, Altars of Madness, one of the greatest freaking death metal records ever. The whole we bow before you. The whole satanic angle. Obviously, whether you believe in that or not, or were you more influenced by the horror films or the books that you read at that time?
Well, I think there's you develop a palette. You have a belief system. You develop a palette that is based on all the things that you take in, be it entertainment, be it current events, religion, food, travels, the people that you meet, and all these things have an impression on you. And writing a book or writing a movie or writing a song, you're writing something that is your commentary. How do you feel about things? And you incorporate all these things. I've always sort of tended towards the dark side of things.
Very nice. Thank you, sir. Caroline Williams and Mr. Bill Moseley. Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2 to Rob Zombie, Halloween 2. There's obviously a thread there with hard rock, metal. I just want to hear Caroline talk because she is a hoot. So you said you were going to get in trouble, so please proceed.
Oh, thank you. I loved what David was saying because I think metal and horror, as just the cultural distinction that we have as consumers and fans of these things, it's contrarian to the rest of society and established culture, established movie culture. And I love movies, and I hadn't gotten involved with a lot of metal myself. Once again, I was Rolling Stones and Jimi Hendrix. He was metal to me. But the thing is that contrarian attitude that I'm not going to do what you expect of me. I'm going to do what I want to do. New York and LA are telling me that I'm supposed to feel and think and experience life in a certain way, and fuck you. I want to do it the way I want to fucking do it. And we have sex, and we consume alcohol, and occasionally...
That was backstage.
You savage, you. No, but seriously, we represent we indulge our more primitive excesses sometimes. Nobody's actually getting out there and killing anybody, but, that's what I loved about being in Chainsaw 2. There's that sort of metal penis dentata moment when I'm in the ice bucket. It's a seduction scene. Women's groups went out of their minds. They wouldn't release the movie in Europe until 2001. And that's because of the delicate sensibilities of the prevailing culture. And the prevailing culture pisses me off. And that's why I'm happy to still be a part of the genre. And now you see it filtering into regular television. Horror is all over the television now. It's a little more sanitized. What David said about the organic nature of 80s style films, you know, all the special effects were created. You get to see them happening. Somebody made that. That's art, you know? And what metal guys do is they go all over the place outside the lines, you know? And for me, Hendrix was like that. He showed up, he's black, he plays the guitar, he fronts the band, he's the guy. I mean, I've never heard a version of the Star Spangled Banner like that, and I never will again. So that's where I am.
Holy shit. And she's got a cool orange dress on, too. Orange. Oh, her shoes, yeah, she's styling. Look at that, wow. She is coordinated. She is coordinated. Yeah, you know, I had when I did Chop Top and Texas Chainsaw 2, what I did was I made myself a cassette tape called the Chop Top tape, and I would play that. There was a lot of weird music on it. I can't even remember what was on it. But I know that the Chop Top was very much inspired. You know, Chop Top says, music is my life. And, you know, totally into Iron Butterfly. There was a problem because in the script it said I was supposed to say, In-A-Gadda-Da-Vida, baby, it's heavy. But because there was some concern about a copyright, they were saying, well, we shouldn't say that. I said, I got it. How about In-A-Vida-Da-Gadda, baby? And that's when they said, yeah, that's it. So, you know, Iron Butterfly, man, we had, there were some good tunes back then. But Humble Pie, yeah, thank you. And what was the question again? I'm just so excited to be like a fucking volumated. Yeah, so yeah, I'm very happy to be here. It does seem very natural. You know, it's so funny too that you know, we're also like an engine of commerce. Let's not let that go unnoticed. Because, you know, between, you know, metal music and horror films, you know, we're making some people a lot of money. And because you guys like it, it's like, it's, you know, the stuff that people want, you know, it's what the people want. Nomland. But, you know, so somebody's making a lot of money, but they always give us kind of short shrift, oh, the horror genre, oh, I don't like to see those movies, and I don't like to listen to that music, and, you know, what do they want? Britney Spears and, you know, Home Alone? I don't know. But, anyway, I'm just happy to be here. I'm happy to be Otis and Chop Top and all these other crazy characters. You know, I'm not like this at home most of the time, but you know, my older daughter is actually in the audience, and I was a pretty decent dad growing up, right? Yeah, all right. See, I mean, sometimes, you know, if you want to get the kid to, you know, make their bed, you know, you go, hey, dog will hunt, or, you know, get a little Otis on them, and, you know, they do tend to do it a little faster, but, yeah, so, anyway, that's enough for me.
We might be a trailer park, but we're $1 billion trailer park.
And actually, I would like to talk about your connection with Rob Zombie too. So, you know, working with Rob and both you and Caroline too, if you kind of go off on that. You know, what's it like working with world famous rock star, killer musician? You know, how does his work and music translate to his work with you guys in film?
It's almost a little too deep for me, but. Well, let's see. I first met Rob at I was dressed as Chop Top, and I was at a horror award show back in Universal Studios in Burbank, California, in Halloween of '89, and I was emceeing this little show dressed as Chop Top, made up as Chop Top, and Rob came out. My daughter Jane was there because she was a big fan of Hellbilly Deluxe. And I didn't really know Rob that well, but I handed him a statue, and that's apparently the first thing he'd ever won. He'd been nominated for a bunch of things, but had never won, and he won an Igor Award, which is like a little bronze demon statue, which I handed him. And about a month later, it turned out he was a Chop Top fan, and a month later, his manager called up and asked if I would like to be in his movie called House of 1,000 Corpses. At the time, and it took me about a second, I went, yeah. And I didn't know what they wanted Otis. I actually thought that Rob somehow wanted a kind of a reworked Chop Top. And God bless Rob, he saw like some kind of lady killer in me. I was more like, I related to Chop Top. I kind of more of a sketchy, head scratching guy. And Rob saw this, this kind of more a sexier guy. And so Rob and Chop Top at the time was kind of like my security blanket. It's like, I'm Chop Top, that's my only claim to fame. And he kind of gently but firmly kind of pried me off Chop Top and led me to Otis, which I always kind of, so I'll be forever grateful for him for that. I kind of figure it was going from kind of the shoulders and the head down to the crotch with your thumbs in your belt loop, like, hey, fuck you. And that was a surprise to me. Working with his beautiful wife, Sherry, I had a mantra. She's the boss's wife, the boss's wife, the boss's wife. So that was important. And Rob, writes all his scripts and also does his, obviously directs and writes. And he's very good with all, handling all the different actors and the different temperaments. He's got a very clear vision of what he wants, and he's very good about how he gets it. And I will tell you one secret, and that is that Rob, and maybe it's from years of touring with bands, but Rob really has good catering. And if you guys are out there and if you want to make a movie and you want your crew to work for free and it's 4 in the morning and you need another hour, good catering, man. Don't give us fucking Domino's. Cold Domino's is not going to get you an hour of quality work. Good catering. And that might even start with red vines, Good catering. Good catering is the secret. And, yeah. So that's the lesson to be learned. Rob Zombie.
Well, Rob does not write all of his stuff because he sent me and Octavia Spencer, who would later win the Oscar for The Help. He sent the two of us into a room with a videographer, and he said, and we were the first shot, first day. And that's pressure. I have never had anything like that in television or film ever in my life, and that's pressure because if you queer the Quan on the first day, it just kind of it's like mites. It just kind of filters into everything. He sent us into this room with a videographer, and he said, just go in there and talk and have fun and goof off, and you're talking about Thanksgiving. And so Octavia and I just made up a whole conversation. And he came in, and he's very tough to read. He's not Mr. Sparkly, chatty guy, He came in, and he looked at the tape, and he said, okay, start with this line, end with that line. And we went to our little space, and we shot our scene, and it was done. And he seemed very happy, and he did have good catering, And I lived.
Queer the Quan.
There's because the Quan, it's the happy spirit of filmmaking. You don't want people getting into spats. You don't want people fucking each other's girlfriends and boyfriends. I did. No. I did make it. I did make it up because it's the spirit of comity and happiness and improvisation. And if you fuck that up the first day, it's like the crew gets the jits. They don't know what to do. Oh no, she fucked it up. We're gonna go 20 takes. We'll be here 12 hours.
One day, we're already a week behind.
Getting prepared for this panel, I spent a lot of time talking with some of our musicians who may not necessarily be, hardcore hardcore horror fans, but really into more disturbing, offbeat, just dark films. And two of the gentlemen are Randy Blythe and Michelle Away Longibin, and we had some really cool talks because it's another thing we try to do with Housecore. It's not about just monsters. It's not about slashers. It's this whole spectrum of horror that exists, whether it's really quiet ghost type horror, whether it's complete mindfuck psychological horror, or straight up slasher flicks. I mean, we love it all here. And so I really enjoyed talking first with Randy on this about some of the films that kind of really influenced you that may not be straight up horror, but to me, you told me about Requiem for a Dream. I think it's one of the greatest films of all time, and it is absolutely a horror film, even though it doesn't get sold as such. And then, of course, Jaws is just the penultimate horror film. The monster, everything that based. Did you ever see Grizzly? Jaws on land. So pause. So, but if you can kind of talk about these darker influences. I know you also talked about Cormac McCarthy and The Road. I'd really love to hear your thoughts on that and how that plays into your mindset, as a musician. And
right on. I mean, first of all, in metal, obviously, there's a huge sort of link to horror and horrific imagery. The fact that we are sitting on Guar's stage tonight proves that, If nobody's ever seen Guar, they're from my hometown, and they make everything very bloody, So I hope you didn't bring anything you want ruined tonight, But for me, I've seen a lot of horror movies over the years. I'm actually terrified to be sitting beside him right now. I was in 5th grade, I guess, and I was on the YMCA soccer team. I fucking sucked. And we had the end of the year pizza party, and we had it at someone's house, and they played Texas Chainsaw Massacre, the first one. It was the first horror movie I've ever seen. And I grew up, that scared the fuck out of me, I'm in like the 5th grade. And I grew up in the country, and we had to chop wood, to heat the house. So the next day, we watched, it was a Friday, next day I go out with my dad to the woods, to get wood for the house. And he's like, pass me the chainsaw. And I'm like, oh fuck, man, And then I saw Children of the Corn. We lived on a farm, and it's like there's corn everywhere. And go pick some corn, Randy. Fuck you, Grandma. So, not good. As far as like Jaws, man, I'm a surfer. So, there is this. Jaws has done more to damage the image of sharks in the world consciousness than anything else in the world. Because, I surf, I've been doing it quite a while. I grew up at the beach, I swim in the ocean all the time. And I see sharks. I've never been bitten. If it happens, it happens. That's a risk you take, I could die walking across the street. I'm not gonna hide from it. So I know that sharks don't really want humans. They honestly don't. They eat fish and seals and shit. Every now and then they make a mistake. But when I'm out in the water and other surfers talk about this, every now and then someone will go, dun, 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 and you're like, fuck, your feet start tingling and shit, You're sitting there. It's getting kind of sharky, I'm serious. It's sharky out here. You go in, So that's sort of like a hangover from seeing Jaws as a young kid, It still exists. And that's the power, I think, of these movies. Like, you were talking about how Leatherface had made it into the vernacular, the common vernacular, and it does, it really does. It infiltrates society. For me, from darker movies, like Requiem for a Dream, it's no big secret to anyone ever heard of my band, Lamb of God? Some of you, yeah. It's no big secret that I used to drink and party a little bit. Some of you might know that. Yeah. So seeing something like Requiem for a Dream for me is kind of horrifying, because that very much could have been my life at one point. I watched that kind of stuff. I watched it for the first time on our tour bus because our drummer, Chris Adler, only likes depressing movies. And if we're all hanging out together, it's a very rare on the tour bus, we're all hanging out together, like, let's watch a movie. And, we want to watch Dumb and Dumber or something like that. And he's like, let's watch Requiem for a Dream or House of Sand and Fog or something really depressing. The whole mood goes like this. But I watched it on tour. That movie fucked me up. And I find with a movie and fiction, a movie like The Road, based on a Cormac McCarthy book, right now there's this sort of, even particularly in young adult fiction, which I've been studying a bit lately because I just wrote a book, and my agent has been asking me if I'd be interested in writing a young adult book. There's a whole genre of like this weird dystopian future that's going on. And I'm trying to figure out why that is. I was talking to a couple of younger guys earlier. Why is that so popular with kids today? You know, is it because our society is completely fucked up and they have no hope? You know, or is it just what's popular? You know, I don't know. If you look at a movie like Godzilla, all the monster movies in Japan, that's a psychic hangover from World War II. You know, that integrated itself into their consciousness. So for me, it's really interesting when I look at films and, you know, it mirrors what's going on in the national conscious at the time. And it can shape the national conscious as well. So, but as far as like imagery and music and stuff from horror films, from darker, more disturbing things, when I sing, I don't, you know, I'm in a metal band, but I don't sing DOS, God rest his soul, love Ronnie James. I don't sing DOS stuff about dragons and stuff. I sing about stuff that disturbs me because it causes a visceral reaction within me. And that's what I want to get out of the listener, you know? Is that a good answer? All right.
Thank you, Randy. Not bad for a guy who's not a horror fanatic, right? That's awesome. Now, Michelle, Randy was talking about, you know, this dystopian future. You actually used the exact same word to me by the Grindhouse tent. And, you know, obviously, who's a fan of Voivod? Who saw Voivod last night? I actually saw them for the first time in this same building. There's a pole over there. It used to be the back room. And 1986 with Celtic Frost.
Yeah.
So fucking to come back here and bring these guys back 28 years later is awesome. So first of all, fanboy moment. Thank you, sir. The whole deal for me with Voivod is actually everything this man's created with the imagery, the science fiction background, artwork, and you talked about this dystopian future, you know, that you're more into sci-fi, but then there's all types of science fiction that is scary as shit.
Oh yeah,
and
like to me, since I was a kid, with like the Outer Limits episodes and Invaders, like the ultimate horror for me was to be like kidnapped by aliens. That like I wouldn't take a ride in a flying saucer, right? And also a lot of stuff about radioactivity, like Ultraman, the Ultraman episodes with like Godzilla type creatures, and also the one that scared me the most was the Incredible Shrinking Man, where he goes like through a radioactive cloud and starts shrinking, and then starts fighting with a spider. First a cat, then a spider, and then the way the movie ends is the total unknown, where he's gonna keep shrinking, and you don't know what he's gonna be fighting against, like viruses, I don't know. And it had like years of nightmare because of that movie. And later on, well, actually, like dystopian movies like Colossus gave me nightmare, like giant computers taking control of the Earth, you know.
It was Colossus. Is that what
Colossus?
Yeah.
It's a great one. And also, a little later, Eraserhead and Alien. These two changed my art.
Well, that's another thing we were talking about too, with the the passing of H.R. Giger this year. Really a sad day for all of us in this room. If you guys know H.R. Giger and Alien, and can you talk? You said that seeing Alien really just twisted your whole perspective.
Yeah, I started to do another type of artwork after that, and some movies where there were no physical creatures involved, like Entity. Really scared me because you're really like there's nothing you can do. The entity can be beside you and hit you anytime, and there's nothing you can do. That really scared me. Yeah.
And just can you kind of talk about your actual artwork also, and was the Giger influence visible in your actual paintings also?
Yes, and also the early 80s cyberpunk movement, Mad Max, Blade Runner. I all saw it as horror because of the bleak future involved. Yeah.
And Randy said William S. Gibson books.
Yeah, Neuromancer. Our album Dimension Hatros was directly influenced by that. He's a fellow Canadian as well. So. Yes.
That's great, guys. Got to save the last here for my friend Bruce Corbett. Dude, I could just name an album or a single from one of your records, and I'd say 1, 2, 3, go. Reanimator.
Reanimate Me. Dr. Herbert West. I mean, that was all rigor mortis did back then. Just jam our asses off for several hours, go smoke a lot of weed. A VCR was the metal band's best friend back in the 80s, because that's all we did. We'd go back and put in all our favorite horror movies and just watch them constantly, And that's why every song is pretty much inspired by something we watch like that,
So how do you go from being an 18, 20-year-old kid watching stuff on VHS to being a 50-year-old man in War Beast kicking ass and still listening to the same or watching the same films and being inspired?
I don't know, it's eternal youth of being a metal and horror fan, let's give it up for that, right? That's the thing, like Carolyn touched on earlier, but thing is, we're rebellious in a way, we're playing speed metal, thrash, death metal type of music, so we don't want to sing about flowers and love. So, horror is a good subject to write about. And if somebody says, oh, this movie's been banned in 18 countries, that's the movie I want to fucking see, And back when our first Rigor Mortis album came out, it was a time of Tipper going to PMRC, and they put that fucking sticker on there. I was fucking proud of that, because it made everybody want to listen to this album, But it's just an honor to be part of this panel and to be here. Thank you, Corey. Everybody, come on, give it up for Corey.
Thank you, guys. But we can't end with me. This man here, first of all, the coolest thing about this whole weekend, last year we brought in Goblin to Livescore Suspiria, and we're like, there's no fucking way we'll ever be able to top that. So what do? Chainsaw, Austin. And so just want to hand them, I'm not going to ask him a question. Gunnar, just whatever you want to say. Sarah, please take it.
I wanted to agree with you about Alien. It's really a teenager's lost in an old house movie. I mean, even to the point of saying, there's something dangerous out here, everybody stick together. Okay, you go that way. And aren't you in the theater shouting, no, don't go after the cat? And it's an amazing movie to me because it is such a classically formed teenagers in a haunted house movie, but it works brilliantly. And I think a lot of it is Eager. And you remember the scene where they're in their suits and they're walking and they see the alien spaceship for the first time? I looked at that and I swear I did this. I was in a movie theater and I gasped out loud so that half the theater heard me. I said, look at that. It's a giant IUD. But I wanted to say something about Chainsaw, which is you're talking about this dark vision of the world that really informs a lot of heavy metal, And I want to talk about what I think is the real dark vision of Chainsaw. And it's real simple, but when I did this book about Chainsaw Massacre called Chainsaw Confidential. Buy it, it's available in any bookstore. No. But when I was doing the book, I thought, I wanted to think about, what is Chainsaw really about? Now, of course, what it's really about is scaring the bejesus out of you. Everything else is gravy if it's there. Toby Hooper claims it's about the Vietnam War. I don't get that. But that's fine. But for me, when I look at the movie, and when I was working on the book, I watched the movie straight through like 5, 6 times. Plus, I looked at every scene over and over again, often with a stopwatch, to see how stuff was put together. And here's what I think Texas Chainsaw Massacre is about. It is about the past eating the future. And I think that's very much a heavy metal image. That it is about like we're talking about, everything's fucked up now. I mean, I really feel like one way to look at Chainsaw Massacre is exactly that. The past is eating and destroying the future for humanity. So, there you go.
So, on that happy note, yes, a new Lamb of God song has been written. Hey, everybody, big round of applause for these amazing actors, musicians, writers. Thank y'all for coming out. Got a killer lineup tonight. A reunion of images of violence. King fucking Parrot. Arthur and Punisher. This thing right here will blow your mind later on with Arthur and Punisher.